September 1812. In a cramped room in the Frankfurt Jewish ghetto, a 68-year-old man is dying. Outside these walls, Europe is on fire. Napoleon is marching toward Moscow, empires are crumbling, and the old order is being rewritten by cannon fire. Inside this room, Mayor Amschel Rothschild is dictating his last will. He has spent his entire life as an outsider. Born behind walls, forced into the gutter when Christians passed. Denied property, denied dignity, denied the right to walk on the sidewalk. And yet, from this tiny room, behind locked gates, he has built something that the emperors outside those walls cannot touch. He has 5 sons, and he has 5 rules. He tells them, stay together, trust no one who does not share your name, and never, never sell what I have given you. Then he picks up 5 arrows, hands 1 to each son. Alone, you break. Together, you survive. 200 years later, the Rothschild family is still here. Still wealthy, still powerful, still private. Napoleon is gone. The Habsburgs are gone. The empires that locked Meyer's people behind walls, all of them are dust. But the Rothschilds? Never sold. Set up. Why this matters. Most people know the name Rothschild. It's become shorthand for secret wealth, for hidden power, for the kind of money that controls governments from the shadows. But almost nobody knows how they actually did it. Not the conspiracy theories, not the myth, the system. 5 rules, handed from a dying father to 5 sons, applied across 2 centuries. And what's remarkable, what nobody talks about, is that these 5 rules are a blueprint, a playbook for preserving wealth across generations. You don't need to be a Rothschild to use them. Rule 1. Disperse your assets across geography. Rule 1. Never keep your wealth in one country. This sounds obvious today. It was revolutionary in 1812. Mayor Rothschild did not build 1 bank. He built 5, 1 in each of Europe's major financial capitals. Nathan in London, James in Paris, Salomon in Vienna, Karl in Naples. Amschel, the eldest, stayed in Frankfurt to hold the center. This was not ambition, it was insurance. If France fell to revolution, London still operated. If Austria defaulted, Paris covered the position. If one government seized assets, the other 4 banks were beyond their reach. In an era when a single decree from a single monarch could erase an entire fortune, the Rothschilds had made themselves unerasable. Today, the wealthiest families do the same thing, just with better paperwork. They hold assets across jurisdictions. They structure entities so that no single government, no single court, no single creditor can reach everything at once. The first rule of dynasty building: don't put your survival in the hands of one country's goodwill. Rule 2. Information beats capital. Rule 2. Know what's happening before your competitors do. The Rothschilds didn't just build banks. They built the fastest private communications network in the world. Carrier pigeons, private couriers, encrypted letters. While governments waited days, sometimes weeks, for news of battles, treaties, and market movements, the Rothschilds knew within hours. This is where the legend comes from. The story, partly true, partly myth, that Nathan Rothschild made a killing on the London bond market after Waterloo because he knew the outcome before anyone else. Whether or not the timing was that precise, the principle was real. The Rothschilds didn't guess. They had better information than governments. The modern version of this is not pigeons, it's networks, private deal flow, relationships that surface opportunities before they hit the open market, legal and tax counsel who see regulatory changes coming and reposition before they land. The families that stay wealthy across generations don't just have money, they have information asymmetry, and they pay to keep it. Rule 3. Keep it in the family, but know when to stop. Rule 3 is the one that people find uncomfortable, and it should be. Keep the capital in the family. Do not let outsiders in. For 3 generations, the Rothschilds took this literally. They married cousins to cousins, uncles to nieces. Of 21 marriages among the founders' grandchildren, 15 were between close relatives. This wasn't romance. This was accounting. In the 19th century, a daughter's marriage meant a dowry leaving the family forever. Every wedding to an outsider was a capital hemorrhage. So the Rothschilds closed the loop. And it worked, for a while. The capital stayed, the banks grew, the dynasty consolidated, but the bill came due. The next generation showed the cost: fragile health, nervous disorders, the kind of eccentricity that made Walter Rothschild famous for driving a carriage pulled by zebras through London while struggling with a stammer so profound he could barely speak to another human being. The Rothschilds eventually stopped. They married out. They diversified their gene pool as aggressively as they diversified their assets. But the core principle survived: build structures, trusts, holding companies, family councils that keep control within the bloodline, not through marriage, through legal architecture. The third rule, updated for the modern world: keep control in the family, but don't breed yourself into fragility. Rule 4, be indispensable to power. Rule 4, never be the king, be the king's banker. Mayer Rothschild spent years courting Prince William of Hesse, one of the wealthiest men in Europe. He sold him rare coins at a loss. He stood in freezing courtyards waiting for servants to acknowledge him. He accepted humiliation because he understood something the prince did not. The prince needed him more than he needed the prince. When Napoleon's armies approached, the prince fled into exile. He couldn't carry his fortune, so he handed it to his humble coin dealer, the Jew from the ghetto who had spent years making himself useful. Mayer didn't bury that money. He put it to work, used the prince's own capital to fund his son's expanding banking network, kept the profits, returned the principal years later, with the prince grateful for the favor. This pattern repeated for 2 centuries. The Rothschilds never ran for office. They never led armies. They made themselves indispensable to the people who did, and quietly collected the returns. The modern version: be the person who solves the problem that powerful people can't solve themselves. Be the one who understands the tax code, who structures the entity, who knows the jurisdiction. Be invisible. Be essential. Be impossible to replace. Rule 5. Plan for the 3rd generation. Rule 5 is the one that matters most, because it's the one that kills almost everyone else. The 3rd generation. The statistic is brutal. 70% of wealthy families lose their fortune by the 2nd generation, 90% by the 3rd. The 1st generation builds, the 2nd maintains. The 3rd, raised in wealth they didn't earn, with no memory of scarcity, consumes. The Rothschilds didn't beat this by accident. They built a system. Mayer's will didn't just divide assets. It established a family constitution, rules for who could participate, how decisions were made, what happened to anyone who tried to sell their share. He made it structurally impossible for a single incompetent heir to destroy what generations had built. Later generations added layers: financial education starting in childhood, a requirement that heirs work outside the family business before joining it, regular family meetings where the next generation is trained, evaluated, and held accountable. They didn't raise rich kids. They raised competent stewards who happened to have access to significant resources. The 5th rule: your wealth will not survive your grandchildren unless you build a structure that trains them to be worthy of it. The payoff: what you can actually use. You don't need 5 sons. You don't need banks in 5 countries. You don't need carrier pigeons. But you do need these principles: geographic dispersion of your assets, an information edge in your field, legal structures that protect what you've built from liability and bad heirs, a relationship with power, which at your level means knowing the right professionals, the right advisors, the right people who can open doors, and a plan for your children that goes beyond "they'll inherit everything." None of this requires billions. It requires intention. The Rothschilds didn't survive because they had more money than everyone else. They survived because they had a system that was smarter than everyone else's, and the discipline to follow it for 200 years. Mayer Rothschild died in that cramped room in 1812. He never saw the empire his sons would build. He never left the ghetto, but he left 5 arrows. And 200 years later, through wars, revolutions, the collapse of empires, and the rise of new ones, those 5 arrows are still together, never sold. If you want to understand the systems that actually preserve wealth, not the myths, not the get-rich-quick noise, subscribe to the Wealth Archive. New deep dives every week.